Brazil truly is a beautiful country, with great people, but with countless problems. Among the biggest ones is corruption and crooked institutions set by those in power. It doesn't really matter where you look. In Brazil, you will find corruption and scandals, so to think Brazilian football would be clean as a whistle is simply naive. I was born at night, very late at night, but not last night. And today we're going to be talking about the most recent CBF scandal that has come out. CBF, for those who do not know, is the Brazilian Football Federation. So fellas, buckle up, make sure it's very tight, because it's going to be a very bumpy ride. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Chapéu Football, where we provide the best coverage of Brazilian football in English on YouTube. Trust me, if you're not subscribed, you're missing out. And today we're going to be diving into what's going on with CBF and Edinaldo Rodrigues, who is the president of CBF. And let me tell you, this guy is something else. And I am very much looking forward to talking about Edinaldo Rodrigues, this very interesting character. Now keep in mind that this episode is being recorded on April 20th of 2025. So if anything comes out after this date, it will not be included in this video. For today's episode, we're going to dive into the article that came out at Revista Piauí that was very controversial, but I'm not only going to just talk about that. I also want to talk about Ronaldo R9, the Brazilian legend, and how he tried to become president of CBF and how he failed miserably and why he failed. The ESPN story that was extremely crazy as well, of journalists allegedly even getting censored, and much more. All my sources will be in the description of this video. Now, before we start, I want to ask you to please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I don't know, if you're in Brazil, just share this video with another Brazilian so we can get the word out, help the channel grow. And I think this video, out of all of the ones we've made so far, is the most important one. It's a very uncomfortable conversation that we must have. And understand that none of the accusations being made in this video come from me. I'm going to try to cite every single source. So my point here is, don't shoot the messenger. Okay? Let's begin. Okay, so before we go to the drama, accusations, and everything that's going on with CBF, I must show you or tell you who is Edinaldo Rodrigues and how he became the president of CBF. This is very important, so you're going to want to pay attention. So Edinaldo Rodrigues, the current president of CBF, is a 71-year-old accountant, but truly, he is a career politician. Throughout the early 90s, he started getting involved with the State of Bahia Football Federation, becoming its vice president in 1997. And later on, he would become their president in 2001, all the way till 2018, so 17 years. Now listen, the state federations are directly connected to CBF, the main federation. They even vote for the CBF presidency. And how the federations vote for the president, we're going to talk about that later in the video when we get to the Ronaldo section. It's going to be extremely important, but we're going to get there. As you can see, Edinaldo has been involved with Brazilian soccer politics for over 30 years. In 2018, he left the Bahia Football Federation to become the vice president of CBF, the Brazilian Football Federation. And it wasn't until 2021 where he would become the interim president because Rogério Caboclo, the president at the time, was removed as he was accused of sexual harassment. Yes, that's the story of how Edinaldo became the interim president of CBF. And we're not going to dive into it in this video because it's not really important for the point we're trying to make. But yeah, let's just say CBF has had some really bad presidents. Then in 2022, they held actual elections, and Edinaldo went from interim president to actual president. It's as if you had a Pikachu and you gave him the Thunderstone, and he became Raichu. However, in December of 2023, there was a court order from the state of Rio de Janeiro removing Edinaldo from his presidency, as there were alleged irregularities from the previous election back in 2022. And that lasted for roughly 1 month. And then Edinaldo Rodrigues was actually put back in power, back in the presidency of CBF by Gilmar Mendes from the Supreme Court of Brazil, the Supreme Federal Court of Brazil. And from my understanding, part of Gilmar's reasoning was that he was afraid that FIFA would sanction Brazilian football. So he was able to get Edinaldo Rodrigues back to being the president of CBF. The problem here is that there have been many reports that show a conflict of interest between Gilmar Mendes from the Supreme Court and Edinaldo Rodrigues from CBF. So, according to Alan de Abreu from Revista Piauí, an institute called IDP was founded by Gilmar Mendes and is managed by Gilmar's son. And in August of 2023, this institute signed an agreement with CBF, the Brazilian Football Federation, under Edinaldo Rodrigues' presidency, where they would take care of the courses of the CBF Academy, which is a branch of CBF that offers educational football courses. Okay, did you understand that? So Gilmar Mendes has this institute, and they signed an agreement with CBF to pretty much take care of the courses that CBF Academy, a branch of CBF, offers. And he's not the one in charge of this institute right now, Gilmar, but his son is. With that, IDP, which is the institute, they manage the courses and they hold 84% of the revenue. That deal is worth millions and millions of reais, and honestly, a couple $1 million as well. This agreement started in August of 2023, and it was in January of 2024 that Gilmar Mendes got Edinaldo his spot back. Alan de Abreu also reported that at least 6 names that are directly connected to IDP, the institute that Gilmar Mendes founded, they got some type of employment with CBF. At least 6. And listen, there's no direct evidence that any decision made by Gilmar Mendes had any influence coming from this partnership between the IDP and CBF. I'm not saying that there was. I'm just giving you the information that's out there. You can come to your own conclusions. But I'm going to say this. There's definitely a conflict of interest. In this case of Edinaldo Rodrigues in the Supreme Court, probably should have not been a decision from Gilmar himself. So it could be just a coincidence, or everything is just rotten to the core. It's probably rotten to the core. Edinaldo Rodrigues is also a very weird guy. Or I mean, I don't want to use this word, but I could even describe dumb at times. He recently came out to support the re-election of Alejandro Dominguez, the current president of CONMEBOL. He essentially said that everything's great, and why would anything change? And listen, don't even get me started with CONMEBOL. I was at the CONMEBOL Copa America final in 2024 where the Colombians were invading the stadium. I made an entire vlog video about that. The recordings of the Colombians invading the stadium that you saw in Brazil, I recorded it. The link to that vlog on our other channel, Tactical Manager TV, that we have 50,000 subscribers, the link will be in the description if you want to watch that vlog. And I also made a video showing everything that CONMEBOL did wrong in that Copa America. My point, CONMEBOL is a mess. It's not well managed. The president does not do a good job. And the CONMEBOL president is also the same imbecile that wants 64 nations in the 2030 World Cup. Yes, the CONMEBOL president is the guy that came out and said that he wants 64 nations in the 2030 World Cup. Now I also want to talk about a report that came out of a very big media outlet in Brazil called Estadão, talking about Edinaldo Rodrigues. And Estadão essentially claims the existence of Bankada Dabbola, which is essentially a bunch of politicians in Congress and the Senate that work in favor of the Brazilian Football Federation to protect their interests, or more specifically, the interest of Edinaldo Rodrigues. They claim that Edinaldo opened an office in a wealthy neighborhood called Lago Azul in Brasília, the capital of Brazil, to use that to lobby with politicians. According to Estadão, even the Brazilian legend Romário allegedly is one of the senators involved in this case. The accusations here seem to be that these politicians would work to protect or to shield Edinaldo Rodrigues as the CBF president. Yes, even Romário was mentioned. Now let's talk about one more accusation before we dive into Ronaldo's presidency campaign that flopped as hard as Queiroz at Barcelona. And this time, according to Léo Dias from Portal Leônidas, Edinaldo Rodrigues was being investigated by the CBF Ethics Commission due to an accusation of harassment made by a former employee. On January 8th, Edinaldo gave the president of this ethics commission a 25% pay raise, where his salary went from 40,000 reais to 50,000 reais. That's a pretty big pay raise. And well, the ethics commission essentially ended the case January 10th, 2 days after their president got a pay raise. And I'm not saying this pay raise played a role in, this case just kind of disappearing or just kind of going away. I'm just telling you what was reported. And if you made it this far in the video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. So we went through some very interesting accusations and stories, but I think things are about to get spicy now. Why don't we start talking about Ronaldo's presidential campaign and why it flopped? Why did he quit so early? Most recently, the Brazilian legend, the greatest center forward of all time in my opinion, started a campaign to become the president of CBF and to make Brazilian football great again. I'm joking. I did not just compare Ronaldo to Donald Trump. I mean, Ronaldo scored 2 goals in a World Cup final, and Donald Trump, I don't know, he ate a Big Mac? Now, for Ronaldo to actually become a candidate, first, he must form his own party. And to do so, he must get the support of at least 4 state federations and 4 clubs. And these 4 clubs have to be from the 1st or 2nd division of Brazil. And listen, I'm going to explain to you now how the CBF presidency elections work, or presidential elections work. There are 27 state federations. Each state federation's vote counts as 3. So that means the vote of all the state federations combined count as 81. Now the 20 clubs from the 1st division, each vote that they have counts as 2. So the 1st division clubs count for a total of 40 votes. And then the 20 clubs from the 2nd division count as 1 vote each for a total of 20. And the clubs that play in the 3rd division or lower, they have no say. They're screwed. Whatever they decide, they just get screwed over, just like us. And if you haven't noticed, if you add up the count of all the clubs, it comes out to 60 votes, and the federations have 81, which means you can literally win an election just with the support of the state federations. But none of that really mattered because Ronaldo never became a candidate. He ended up quitting once 23 out of the 27 federations immediately rejected him right away. 3 others never responded, and only 1 listened to what he had to say, which was the one from São Paulo, which means pretty much 26 out of the 27 straight up supported Edinaldo. Possibly all 27. It doesn't really mean São Paulo would have supported Ronaldo, they just let him talk. So understand, that is how Brazil, or how the Brazilian state federations, treat one of the biggest legends of the sport. It's ridiculous. But listen, there's more, and this is where things get spicy. According to Revista Piauí, the presidents of all these federations had their salaries go up by over 300%, you heard that right, 300%, ever since Edinaldo took over in 2021. They were getting paid around 50,000 reais per month back in 2021, and right now they make roughly 215,000 reais. In dollar terms, they went from making roughly $8,000 per month to $35,000 per month. That's a big pay raise. Holy crap, you're making $8,000 in like 3 years ago, and then now you're making 35 grand? And understand that being able to increase the pay of those who vote for you, that's a big problem. That's a big no-no. Don't you think? Don't you agree with me? Oh boy, Edinaldo is definitely going to be on Santa's naughty list. And I'm not a genius, even though a lot of people think I'm a genius. But I'm not. I truly am not. However, I can connect the dots. And I'm gonna ask you, could it be that these pay raises played a role in these federations supporting Edinaldo over Ronaldo? The deep state is nasty and very tough to beat, and Ronaldo learned it the hard way. Probably, along with many other factors, right? It's not just the pay raise, but also the fact that, CBF keeps the state tournaments active and going, and things that I'm not going to dive into in this video. So you let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think the state federations supported Edinaldo because of the pay raise and other factors, or you just think they believe he's doing a tremendous job? You tell me. Now it feels like the perfect time to dive into the Revista Piauí article and the ESPN story that was pretty crazy. I feel like everything in this video is pretty crazy. Gilmar Mendes, Edinaldo, Ronaldo story, the case with the Ethics Commission, and then now it might even be the craziest part of the entire video. After Ronaldo quit, CBF held elections in March of 2025, where Edinaldo won with 100% of the votes, and he will stay as president of CBF until March of 2030. 100% of the votes. That's some North Korea-like elections right there. We got our very own Brazilian Kim Jong-un. And hey, listen, it's a joke. Don't sue me. I'm joking. Kinda. Maybe not. I'm not sure. And now a few days after his re-election, now in early April, Revista Piauí did release an article written by Alan de Abreu with plenty of accusations. And that's when hell broke loose. And this article had a lot of accusations, and I'm not going to dive into all of them. It talked about how Edinaldo Rodrigues would use CBF's money for personal expenditures, or even use it, kind of like to lobby or to bring friends or just for personal gains. Also, the state federations, which would be the ones to oversee all these expenditures, they turn a blind eye. Could it be because of the pay raises? All these accusations were made, including the one about Gilmar Mendes and his institute that is connected with CBF, and how Gilmar Mendes was the one that allowed Edinaldo Rodrigues back in the CBF presidency, while his institute was making millions and millions of reais, being managed by his son. We talked about that earlier in the video. Now listen, things get a bit crazier here. A few days after this article was released by Revista Piauí, 6 ESPN journalists decided to essentially react to it on TV, which amplified the accusations. And this is what I don't understand. If the accusations are false, right, if they're not real, then CBF and Edinaldo Rodrigues, they have nothing to fear. Now, if they are real, then, then you got a lot to fear. Or maybe not, because it's very easy to go unpunished in Brazil if you have money and you have influence. Now, the 6 journalists from ESPN ended up being suspended for a few days after they essentially reacted to the Revista Piauí article, which many claim it was a moment where ESPN might have panicked, as they have the rights for the second division games in Brazil, and CBF could boycott them or screw them over. Something could happen behind the scenes. For them to keep all of that going, they have to be on good terms with Edinaldo and CBF. And to me, that's the big problem these days with, mainstream media or big media. In this case, ESPN. They're not truly independent. They're kind of like held hostage, I guess, from these very big, powerful institutions. In this case, ESPN is afraid of CBF because they rely on CBF to make money. You see, ESPN is replaceable to CBF. Now, CBF is not replaceable to ESPN in Brazil. Now, after the journalists were suspended, CBF came out with a statement denying that they would interfere with such thing. And they said, and I'm kind of trying to translate it here to the best of my ability, and they said, it does not proceed. The CBF respects the freedom of press with responsibility and would not interfere in any type of media. Any type of narrative that differs from what we said is a lie. So, a couple things to talk about here. First thing is, all CBF can do is deny, and honestly, there's no evidence that they did in fact interfere. But ESPN's reaction was iffy, to say the least. It was weird. Also, CBF would never admit of doing such a thing. No one really would. However, there is evidence that Edinaldo, the president of CBF, does not entirely support freedom of press. He does get sensitive and emotional over certain comments. In 2024, Edinaldo Rodrigues actually took a journalist to court, and the reason will make you laugh. A journalist called out CBF and Edinaldo in a soccer show called Jogo Aberto from Bungie, if I'm not mistaken, after a few fans threw rocks on the opposing team's bus, leaving people injured. The journalist said something along the lines that he didn't really expect CBF to do anything about it, that the president of CBF is a frouxo, which means that he's soft, with no leadership, and that the entity is bankrupt from a moral standpoint. And in this case, that there was a lawsuit, or I think the lawsuit might even still be active, Edinaldo claimed that the word frouxo was offensive. This is literally a guy getting sued for calling someone else soft. I'm not joking. Like, this is literally a lawsuit of someone getting called soft. Could you imagine this happening in the United States of America? It just wouldn't happen. And the funny part is that Edinaldo suing him for calling him soft kind of proves the point that he is soft. Is Edinaldo a frouxo? And clearly, he's not for freedom of press, is he? Like, are we allowed, or is anyone allowed, to criticize him? Last but not least, on April 8th, Revista Piauí came out with another article, this time with accusations of CBF having hidden cameras or mics to spy on their employees. These accusations were made by a former employee, or a few employees actually, one even saying that they called that place North Korea. I'm not going to go through the specifics of that article. I'm going to put the link to it in the description, and you can read it yourself in Portuguese. And if you don't understand Portuguese, you can just use Google Translate. Because if I talk about every single accusation against Edinaldo and CBF, this video is going to be like 3 hours long. So I had to just kind of like pick the biggest ones, in my humble opinion. Okay, so before we close this video, I would like to share my opinion with you. But before I even do that, I want to ask you once again to smash the like button and share this video with anyone that you think needs to know about what's going on with Brazilian football. And any type of support to help this channel grow, whether it is with a comment, a like, a subscription, whatever you want to do, is greatly appreciated. Now, my opinion, all these accusations being made do not come from me. And I gave you the sources. And these are very serious accusations. And when you connect the dots, it kind of all makes sense, and they're probably true. However, it's innocent until proven guilty. For anything to happen to CBF or Edinaldo, there has to be actual evidence and proof that there were wrongdoings. It's not the other way around. With that said, there should be some very serious investigations into all of this. I mean, there were politicians, members of the Supreme Court, all of this allegedly involved. So there should be serious investigations going on right now. However, Brazil is not really a serious country. So I don't think there are investigations going on right now. And I don't think there will be investigations ever happening about anything that I talked about in this video. The passion of Brazilian football fans has been exploited by a select few for their own personal gains. It's sad, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I think getting rid of Edinaldo might not really matter. The problem is far deeper than Edinaldo Rodrigues. It's not like any of the presidents prior to him were better or worse. I mean, former CBF president Marinho went to jail for corruption. Don't even get me started with Ricardo Teixeira and others that were also terrible. What I think will happen is that nothing will happen. The investigations might even start, but they're never really going to go anywhere. They're not really going to move forward, and some of them might actually not even start. CBF will eventually hire Carlo Ancelotti, maybe, or some good coach for the national team, and people will mostly just move on from this. I am serious. If Brazil, let's say, hires Carlo Ancelotti and wins the World Cup, no one will care. It's the sad reality of Brazil. No one will care. Edinaldo will remain in power. Everything that's wrong, everything that's going on will continue to go wrong. Of course, if it's all true, right? It's all allegedly. He is innocent until proven guilty. I hope I'm wrong, but I think that's what's going to happen. So right now we have a football federation that refuses to invest on the refs, the fields, its people, infrastructure, its own country. but it's willing to invest money to stay in power. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and have a great day.